Hello and welcome. My name is Coach Pav, and today I'm going to be discussing why your ego is your best friend in cycling performance. It's important to remember we all have an ego, and often we talk about that in being a negative kind of you're egotistical, egocentric sort of blame, pointing the finger, and putting someone down, or not necessarily putting them down, but trying to correct someone, especially if they do seem like they fall internally rather than being more of a community player. But I think if we look at athletes in general, some of the world's best athletes are also the most egotistical. And I think in some respects, if you're going to be a star on the world stage, you do have to be incredibly egocentric, very, very egotistical, and obviously very selfish. Looking at the likes of Michael Jordan, even Cristiano Ronaldo, some of the world's greatest players in any sport, just love themselves. I mean, probably the classic, if you're a football soccer fan, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is always talking about himself in third person, describes himself as a lion, but also is playing into his 40s, I believe he is now, which is incredible for a guy of for playing soccer at that or football at that age and at that level. What we need to discuss, though, is how that relates, or what I'm going to discuss today is how that relates to you as an amateur athlete, and what you can do in order to leverage your ego to actually be a better, a stronger cyclist. So, unfortunately, of course, as a coach, I have seen far too many people who have come to work with me who are at the bottom rung, or I've heard stories of people who quit. And I think that a lot of that comes from just over expectations. I think what our ego tends to do is inflate our own sense of self-worth, entitlement, or actual performance or ability. And I think that there's a lot of ways in which you can make sure that actually you don't get to the point where your expectations are based around egotism. Is that the word? Yeah. Because ultimately you're setting yourself up for a failure, right? You're setting yourself up for a massive fall if you lead yourself to believe that actually you should be the best, or you should be winning races, or you should be kicking ass, and then you don't. And a lot of this I talk about, obviously, if you've read, listened to, or watched any of my information on around commitment, kind of ties into that, because what we talk about with commitment is you have to have expectations that are realistic in terms of where your goals are, and it's perfectly normal as an amateur athlete to have training fit around work and family and stuff like that. And I think that's where a lot of amateur athletes fall down, is that they set goals that are too high, thinking that they'll be able to sacrifice everything else. In reality, it's just not feasible, which is a shame, because ultimately, as soon as you start to slip, it becomes a sort of spiral or a whirlpool where the only way out is to quit. And that's kind of a similar thing with being an egotistical athlete, is that actually our egos can be very destructive and self-sabotaging. And what we want to do is make sure we leverage that in a way that is productive and helpful rather than destructive. If you are watching on YouTube, there is a blog which I'll link in the into the description, or in just head to coachpav.com/blog and you'll find it there. And if you are listening on the podcast, the same link back. All of the lists which I've got, it's only two in this one today, are linked there. But one of them is pretty critical. And I think one of the funniest things about being egotistical is that you often don't know that you're egotistical or you're ego-led. It's very easy your ego's very good at tricking you into believing that this is, the right thing for you. And it's only when, you fall flat on your face that you realize that maybe you've not. Here's a big old non-exhaustive list of possible ways that your ego is negatively affecting you. And if you think that there's a couple or more of these traits which you fall into, this blog or this content rather is going to be really, really applicable to you. So here we go. criticizing and judging others, manipulative behavior, being closed or inflexible to other people or their opinion, mood swings, a constant need for approval or praise, a need to feel superior to others, regular feeling or living in fear, overly anxious, being uncooperative, taking processes, rights, or life too seriously, easily taking offense, constantly worrying, feeling of resentment towards others, an inability to live in the present moment, feeling of hopelessness or despair, and the need to take power or control your life or others. So again, I think the one thing to remember here is we're not looking to get rid of our ego. Our ego is very important. Obviously, a lot of it stems back to when we were hunter-gatherers and we had to search for food or, protect ourselves against other tribes and stuff. And our ego was very good or useful in ensuring we recognize dangers. And now, honestly, like for most of us, especially if you're watching this, that none of those problems exist anymore. So our ego has to have something to keep itself busy. And unfortunately, that falls on this. But it's also really important that we do live, we have an ego. If you didn't have an ego, for example, it's highly likely that you wouldn't, commit to anything at all. You wouldn't feel the need to work or even, train for anything. And we can definitely leverage our ego in positive ways to make you a stronger cyclist. So we'll move into that right now. So again, I always talk about mental fitness regime or routine, which includes stuff like meditation, gratitude practice, mindfulness training, and stuff like that. And I think that that's one of the biggest ways, at least for me, where I have seen such massive growth in terms of understanding how my ego actually affects me and drives me and has leveraged me in the past. And when I read out or I wrote out those list of things, of traits earlier, I can tell you that in my life, I've probably experienced all of those. I'm definitely a lot better now, but I can't imagine I'm the only person that's having an input on this right now, whether you as the reader, watcher, or listener. So let's talk about how we can leverage the ego and why that would be. So a study conducted using video gamers at Johns Hopkins University found that participants were on average 5% better at the video game, and sometimes as much as 20% better when they were performing in front of others. Now, I know we're not playing a video game. Maybe if you're on Zwift or something like that, we could include that. But ultimately, we are riding. Having said that, if you have ever performed any physical activity in front of people, I bet that you are now nodding your head or agreeing and saying, actually, yes, that kind of the validity or the gratitude, or not the gratitude, the gratification others give you, whether that's clapping, cheering, or whatever, when you are performing, is incredibly powerful. Nobody wants to walk their bike up the hill in front of people. Yeah. So I think that that's probably a good example of actually how that is. So 5 to 20% better if you perform in front of other people, just because you're leveraging your ego and you don't want to look bad. So what are the best ways in which you can go about doing that? And there's this is where I think you'll take some stuff away, and you don't have to do all of them, don't have to do any of them, to be honest. But I think that if you did do some of these, I think that you will help yourself in terms of committing to your goals, getting the training done, and actually seeing good improvements, especially if you're somebody that has some motivation issues or struggles with high intensity training. And I think that that's a lot of people. Number one for me, share your goals with other people. And this is a really good solid start at keeping you accountable. So when I say involving other people, you don't need to blast it across social media. I think that that's a bit redundant now. It also sets you up for a failure a little bit. I think that honestly, social media for me, I'm not massively on it. I think it's become a place where everybody just likes to have an argument nowadays. In most of it, you probably got your tribe that you love, share it with them. And I'm sure that if your social media is very closed off, not open to the whole world, then you're probably thinking it's a safe place to share it. So yeah, I would definitely share this with the people around you that make you feel safe about what you want to do, because they'll help you keep accountable. It's a massive boost to your motivation and in terms of committing to training as well, when you actually share that with you. So another one which is kind of a bit more effort, which is going to help with your interval training, your high intensity stuff, is to potentially live stream your hard indoor sessions. Now, I know a lot of people who would be more than happy to help out with getting that set up. Good friend Pete Donahue at Team ZF, which is a Facebook group but predominantly obviously very big on Zwift and stuff like that, has live streamed a lot of his workouts, and I think that actually that's a really powerful motivator. Obviously, of course, it's a bit of technical work there. It's certainly maybe a bit of effort, but what about joining up a spin class? I know typically as a coach, I don't often like it when clients are doing spin classes, mainly because I can't control what that looks like. But if it's going to get the high intensity sort set up and you can get some data from my perspective, I can get data and analyze it, then I'm fairly happy that that's getting done. If that means that there's a significant performance boost from, just mentally being able to push harder in front of other people. Group trainer sessions with your club. And of course, this can be virtual. I have a lot of local clubs from went back in the UK that I know of. I think Thanet RC are one that do regular time trials on Zwifts and stuff like that. You can do, Team ZF again do regular group train workouts. You don't need to be doing the same workout. You could do your workouts with other people, jump on Discord or Zoom or something like that, and then train. And I think that will help. But I know a lot of clubs like Eastbourne Rovers, they used to do indoor trainer sessions Monday nights, I think it was. Don't know if they're still doing that. It'd be great. Let me know if you are, if anyone's watching, listening. A great way to do that, take that outside if you're somebody that lives outside like me and a lot of my clients that live in warm climates like California. Actually joining a hard group ride is great, like chain gangs, even time trials, short ones, stuff like that is great. I can remember hanging out the back of my ass when I was riding train gangs and still never quitting. Just because you don't want to look like that guy that falls off and has to ride on their own for a bit. And then of course, another way doing it is just pay a coach. It doesn't have to be me. I'm at time of recording this, I'm nearly full, but there's some great coaches out there. If you don't know any, or you want a recommendation, if it's not me that you want to work with or I'm full, I'm happy to do that. I have a network of amazing coaches. And it's an incredibly powerful tool to keep you accountable, motivate you, and everything like that. Honestly, the possibilities are endless with working with a coach. And of course, once you start paying for it, you'll want to see the biggest return on your investment. I'm just going to wrap this up with the last thing, which I mentioned earlier, is finding your tribe. Right, this is a really, really important one because, as I said, that this kind of egotistical stuff is. You're almost playing a little bit with fire, especially when you involve other people, because those people could turn out to be arseholes. And let's be honest, there's a lot of them out there, unfortunately. So you need to make sure that you protect yourself at all times and only involve people who are going to, tell you in a constructive manner when you're messing up or you're not doing it. And unfortunately, especially in social media, there are a lot of people out there that can't wait to put you down and make you feel as miserable as they obviously do. So find your tribe, whether that's a small group of friends on Facebook or your family or even your club. Right, club's usually a perfect example of that. And then you go, you share all of this, you do all of this with them, and that's just one way you can start to one big way you can start to leverage your own ego to see those goals. So I am just going to wrap this up with my top 5 tips to successfully leveraging your ego for cycling performance improvements. So tell other people about your goals, involve others in your training, continue to work on your mental strength, work with a coach, and find your tribe. And that's it. That is everything that you need to know about leveraging your ego to help improve your cycling performance. Thank you so much. Obviously, if you are on YouTube, leave me a comment or a thumbs up or share with your friends. And if you're similarly, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, if that's an option, and if you're either of those two, don't forget to check out the comments. The description, where you can find lots more links to relevant information. Come and visit me on coachpav.com. Consultations, always free, 15 minutes. And I can give you a hand when you're stuck with this. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. My name is Coach Pav. Have an awesome day.